Welcome to the Hoops Rehab Show on a Sunday night after a big Game 7. How you doing, Eric?
Doing pretty good, man. How about yourself? Happy Sunday.
Yeah,
It was it's nice to see got the conference finals set, and obviously we're gonna get into Game 7. But yeah, it's been pretty good. How was your day?
Yeah, it was a great Sunday, man. Got to spend some good time with the family, watch a little basketball, and hop on tonight to kind of talk about everything, what went down in Game 7, and what the future of the playoffs is going to look like. But as always, everybody, follow us on our social media platforms. I am the Game Injury Doc, aka Dr. Evan Jeffries, and then we got Eric B. Mack on my right. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all those channels. And then also, please follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the Hoops Rehab Show. And also our pod, which is available on Apple and Spotify or however you get your podcasts. So please, 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 if you can rate and comment on our podcasts, we would greatly appreciate it. We love putting out our content for everybody to see. But
yes, sir.
Let's get it cracking. So what do you think about Game 7, and what do you kind of see in this game? Obviously, it became a little one-sided when we got to the second half, but what do you think about it?
It did. I got to start first by giving props to OKC. I know we're going to break things down. We're going to talk about how Denver wasn't healthy and tired and all the things that we're going to talk about in terms of like why Denver lost. But OKC was the best team all year. First place, best record in the league. They obviously had the most double-digit wins. And in a playoff where there's been so many upsets, the one thing that holds true and holds to form has been Oklahoma City. And so they are obviously the 1 seed and they're still alive. So I just had to say that first because they're the ones that are still alive out of the teams that we thought would still be dancing, so to speak. So I wanted to say that first.
Yeah.
And then second off, it wasn't the Game 7 that we all would have hoped. It was kind of similar to the Clippers and Denver, actually almost identical, where Clippers, same as Denver, had a kind of a first quarter lead. Denver went on a pretty nice run to end the first half, just like the Thunder did today. And the second half, it was not pretty at all. And obviously, I think by the middle of the third, we kind of knew what was going to happen. And so definitely a blowout that I didn't see happening, but obviously it happened for multiple reasons we'll get into. But what was your just kind of high level take on Game 7?
Man, for me, it was just seeing the tweets that Aaron Gordon is going to play. I mean,
crazy.
I was pretty mind blown by just the fact that you hear this morning is a grade 2 hamstring strain. And it makes sense because they didn't really ever say what strain or severity the injury was. Pretty much trying to hide the fact that it was. And then eventually they were like, hey, we got to put this out there because it's not right to Aaron Gordon, number one. Like if you don't say it, right, it's like, oh, it might have not been that bad. Why don't you just play? And just the fact that he tried to give it his all, I thought that was just like amazing on that part. It makes you just realize that these guys go out there and try to give everything they got to try to win a game. And so just right off the start, I was like, man, I kind of got a little pumped for Denver and, looking at maybe he's going to give that Willis Reed moment.
Yes,
but then on the other side, I just said, hey, what happens if Denver wins this game? What does Aaron Gordon look like moving forward? Because this is an injury that usually takes him out at least a month. So, like, would he keep playing on it? So all these scenarios are kind of running through my head. And, I thought they did well in the first quarter and really had some momentum. He brought him he got a lot of rebounds. He obviously didn't look like himself. He was laboring out there kind of on one leg, but doing the best he could possibly do in that scenario. So props to Aaron Gordon for even trying to do that. And then as that second quarter kind of took over, OKC got in the rhythm, started really getting that on-ball defense that they always are just all up in that grill. You text me earlier about Caruso on Joker. They're just like putting these matchups where you just go like, that should be a problem, but it's not. They have so many versatile defenders on this team, and they just constantly send pressure. They press. They attack up top like early on, and it's a constant thing with them. And they went on the end of the half run, which was like, I think a 12-2 run, and that second quarter, I think they outscored them 39-20. So that was a huge quarter for them, and it pretty much set the game in place after that.
Back to definitely, and I mean back to Aaron Gordon. We were all obviously shocked that he was going to play, and we thought like that Willis Reed moment where he plays a minute or two and checks out. On the telecast, even Doris Burke talked about last playoffs. We talked about it on our last show with OG Anunoby. When he had that hamstring injury, he ran like a couple times up and down the floor. And I mean, he was a wrap. And so she was saying like, oh, I thought I was going to see that today. And so obviously he hung in there. He was definitely a step slow. And I think they needed, 100% Aaron Gordon. But yeah, that was pretty amazing to see. And Alex Caruso was amazing to see as well. I mean, this is like one of these times like you really need to like actually watch the game like throughout. If you're just going to look at a box score, it's not going to really show his impact in particular tonight. He was just all over the place. I mean, when they brought him in is when they really started to seize control. Yes, there was plenty of times that he was actually on Jokic, and you can tell they were a little thrown off by that. And hey, kudos to OKC throwing another wrinkle when, we talked about how by game 4 or 5, definitely 6, there isn't many adjustments. It is what it is at that point. And so I like that. It was a little bit different. It definitely threw, Denver in for a loop, and they really couldn't recover. And that's really what ended up propelling OKC. Obviously, SGA was phenomenal. I know you talked about getting a second guy to a Robin to his Batman, and Jalen Williams definitely stepped up today. He had a much better outing. So just overall, it was a tough night for Denver, and obviously a glorious night for the Thunder.
Yes, for sure. Before I make my next point, as always, everybody, please comment on our YouTube or Twitter if you're watching it, either platform that you're watching the live. We'll try to get some of the comments throughout the show and kind of towards the end of the show. If you guys have anything to say about Game 7 or what you think about the playoffs kind of moving forward in the Eastern and Western Conference. So we always like to interact, so please let us know what you are thinking. But to piggyback a little bit on Alex Caruso, I mean, you know how I feel about kind of analytics and things like that. And you look at the box score, you don't really see it all. If you want to look at something, his plus minus was a plus 40 in this game.
I see that.
Everything you need to know about this game, a plus 40 off the bench. And he played, 26 minutes, right? So he was everything for them as that complementary role player that you just knew when the OKC Thunder traded for Alex Caruso. I mean, I'm sure I texted you. I'm like, that is like a sign that they are going for the championship. Like they were like, hey, we need those type of players. We have some core young group of players, but we need players that can give you that grind. They can play defense. They can get buckets. They can hit the open three. And as soon as they did that, you're just like, oh yeah, him and Hartenstein, as just adding those two has been really, really beneficial to the OKC Thunder. And yeah, Jalen Williams really stepped up and played that Robin role for SGA, and that was crucial for them because moving forward, they're going to have to get games out of both of them every single game. Like we can't have Jalen Williams going silent, getting 6-8 points in a game. They won't win a game when that happens. So he'll be the key. If he's in that 20 range and he's getting his normal buckets, I think they have a pretty solid chance moving into Minnesota.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, I think that was a difference this series where I feel like there was a different unsung hero for OKC. I mean, you mentioned Crusoe was a plus 40. Case and Wallace was a plus 38. He played 29 minutes. So they're just so deep. And that's what like I think really won the series, because a lot of the superstars played on par, I guess you can say, and all had big games. Jamal didn't do that great today, but Murray. But yeah, I think the depth and having home court advantage at the end of the day, it matters. I mean, I know a lot of times throughout the season, I mean, there's a reason why we said you got to be a first, second, or third seed to win it all. And it may or may not happen these playoffs. I have no idea. But the big part of it is having home court, and then having home court in a game 7. It's big. I mean, sure, a road team could win, but I thought that was huge tonight. That audience and crowd was just amazing. So,
yeah, OKC is so deep, and they continue to play that throughout the playoffs. Usually you think of like playoffs, they kind of wrap it up at 8 players max, maybe 9. OKC just goes 11. They can go to anybody on that bench that is, and Shea will always say that in his interviews. He's like, yeah, like how did this person do? And he's like, we have these 12 guys, these 12 to 15 guys that can come in there, and when their name is called, they can make a difference in a game. And you see it constantly every night. And I think that's going to be a huge thing. And a little bit back where you're talking about the top 3 seeds, right? We have 2 left, right? We got OKC as the number 1, and then we have New York as the number 3. And so 2 out of 4 chance that it will be the same type of pattern, right? We've only had 2 teams ever in the NBA win a championship that is higher than the 1, 2, 3 seed. So we'll see what happens and how it shakes out. But OKC is probably leading the pack in that one.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely got to be favorites with the Final Four. I wouldn't be surprised really if like any team won it. I mean, I guess Indiana would be a slight surprise if they won it all. But yeah, it's one of those years that it would really not totally shock me if either 4 of those teams won. Yeah,
it is. Finally, I would say this Final Four is the most open I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know if in my lifetime, but I don't remember a time where you have these 4 teams. Yeah, I mean, like last year you had obviously Boston there, so you're like, oh, expect that a little bit. Mm-hmm. But like, I can't remember a Final Four where you're just like, yeah, I don't know who's going to win. And I would have never have guessed these 4 teams to kind of be where they are. I mean, OKC obviously as the number 1 seed, but just in general, the concept of having these 4 teams there is pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, because you have a 6 seed in Minnesota, which I don't really count them as a 6 seed right now. Yeah. And then you have a 4 seed in Indiana, and they've showed they can really beat anybody. So, it's gonna be an interesting conference finals, that's for sure.
For sure. All right, so I wanted to, just dive a little bit more into the Aaron Gordon and our Something Happened Today segment. We're always talking about injuries and kind of the effects in the playoffs. But when we kind of find out this morning that he had a grade 2 hamstring strain, which is a partial tear of the hamstring. So think about partial tear anywhere from 25 to 50% of the hamstring was torn. Right. They can even go up to about 60% or so. Right. So you have a good percentage of your hamstring that's torn. And that's just huge. Right. Like you guys understand how much pain he probably was dealing with. And just the fact that it's so hard to sprint when you have a hamstring strain, and to do anything, to backpedal, to try to jump, anything you can think of is very, very difficult. And so the fact that he actually was able to go out there and didn't look like Willis Reed, right? He's running around and kind of making some plays, getting a lot of rebounds, and was somewhat effective in the first half. I mean, I think as the game got out of hand, it really wouldn't have made a difference at that point. But just kudos to Aaron Gordon for even trying. I think a lot of players probably would have never done that. I mean, OG tried to play last year, right? And that was that. He did actually miss a game. He missed some games first and then tried to come back at the end of the series, right?
Yeah.
I think that injury happened in game 1. So like I've never seen somebody in 48 hours or whatever this has been, almost 72 hours, just literally try to play on it. So it was pretty remarkable to kind of see that. And you just know what type of player he is and what type of teammate you have in Aaron Gordon.
Oh yeah. I mean, if it was the regular season, we wouldn't probably have seen him for like what, 4 to 6 weeks if you know,
For
that's
sure.
like minimum. And so
Yeah.
and it's like OG, he missed that, he got hurt. Yeah, like you said, I believe the first game, he missed a few games and he kind of gave it a go. And so this is completely different.
Yeah.
Such a freak thing. Obviously, they had the game in hand and they pulled it towards the end of game 6. And I don't know. I mean, if they would have somehow won it, not too sure what would have happened after that. I don't know if he would have just had to miss the next series and they would have just been like, hey, like at least we got here and that was the goal, is just for him to play one game or something. I mean, I guess we'll never know unless he talks about it. But I mean, he gave it his all. That's what kind of shows you how, we'll probably talk about it later on in the show, that Denver does need to add, and kind of like a lot of teams need to add a couple pieces, and some more depth, because they knew that they needed him even at, I guess, like 50-60%. And so he gave it his all, though, and that's all you could really ask for. I wouldn't really have asked him to play, but he's obviously a tough SOB.
Oh, 100%. So just want to give shout out to Aaron Gordon, because that was pretty amazing to kind of see. I was just worried about if they were to win, like what it would look like moving forward.
Right.
And they didn't have it in them to kind of finish off that game. So pretty remarkable. But on that thought, though, I wanted to pose the question to you. Do you think that the Denver Nuggets make pretty drastic changes this summer?
I think in theory they have to make some pretty big changes. I know they're in salary cap purgatory where they got a lot of expensive guys. And so they're not like one of these like bigger market teams where, players are dying to go to. Yeah. Although I'm sure they love to go play with Joker and, I was going to say Murray, but mainly Jokic. So they do need to make some changes. And, that could be something like, and this is just me throwing, something at a wall and seeing if it sticks, obviously maybe like Michael Porter Jr. He's quite expensive, and maybe they could find a team that wants to, get somebody like him, and maybe they can get a couple pieces to make up for that. Or, they keep the core four and hope that, obviously Braun's going to be a year older, right? Another year of experience. My man, what's his name? Watson, right? Was it Peyton Watson? Hopefully Watson, he kind of,
it's a good player.
Yeah. Maybe he, kind of, he's real thin and he's really good defender, but hopefully he kind of like takes that leap. And then maybe, a veteran or two that can really spell a little time for these, few guys that are playing huge minutes throughout the season, and of course in the playoffs. And I finally kind of caught up to him. But what about you? I mean, I know you're thinking maybe they need to make big changes. I just don't know what could be out there and if it's even ideal.
Yeah, I'll go to the press conference with when they asked Jokic, can the Nuggets still win a championship as they're put together now? And he said, I mean, we didn't, so obviously we can't. Right. So that was pretty blunt assessment, but that's just the way he is.
He's very literal, which is good.
I do think there's going to be some big changes. And number one, they still have to figure out who their head coach is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? David Elliman did a great job. I mean, got him out of the first round, got to a game 7 against OKC, and had one of his star players out, or essentially limited in this game, and probably would have been out moving forward. So you got to give him props for what he did. But again, it's a very, very small sample size. I mean, he coached 3-4 games in the regular season and then the playoffs. And a lot of that was just those players have played together for a long time. And Adelman's just been there as assistant coach. So there's some familiarity there. Yeah. I think there's going to be some bigger changes with the Denver Nuggets, because I feel like they're almost stuck in this plateau, right, where they won a championship and then now they've had a couple years where there's not much going on. It's kind of, they're getting a little flat. And so there is a player out there that is having a big meeting this week. And his first name starts with a G. Yeah. So could there be a pairing of Giannis and Joker ever? Would Denver, they have some pieces they can potentially trade, right? You got some talent on that team. You got a Jamal Murray. You got a Michael Porter Jr. And obviously they can match with salaries, and then obviously they can have some draft picks that they can throw in the future. But things like that, I started thinking would they make a drastic change, or would they try to make some trades around the fringes that are okay? They get some depth because they need it. And they still go with that core group of guys. Because I honestly think Michael Porter Jr. is on his way out. But that's just from body language and what you've kind of seen this year. Yeah. I think that regardless of what they do, he's going to be involved in some sort of package this year.
Yeah, I think unless it's for somebody like Giannis, where hey, pretty much almost everybody's on the table except for Jokic. Yeah, I think it's pretty writings on the wall. It was going to maybe even happen during the trade deadline this past year, where he was going to be the dealt. And it's honestly it's a salary cap move too. And so they'll have to be real strategic on what they get back for that, a deal. And so, I think he will most likely be gone. It just will be interesting to see what type of player they're actually looking for to come back. And so, it's going to be, like you said, they got to do a little something. It's they won a championship. They ran it back, right? And what else would you want to do other than running it back and see if you can get it back to back? Didn't happen. Had semi rough year this year, up and down. Yeah. If you call 50-32 fourth seed in the West rough, that's what it is, right? Yeah. But they to move on to that next step, just like some other teams in the West, they're going to have to make a move or two. And they're going to have to figure out that coaching situation, because I thought it was his job, but thinking about it, he is part of Mike Malone's staff, and they may just want to move a complete different direction. And so that is something that we got to look at too.
Yeah, I think they almost want a fresh start. And I think he's done a great job, and I think he'll be a coach in this league for sure. Yeah, I think so. And it might be a good opportunity for him to go somewhere as well, because that was basically that was a resume booster. What he did showed that he can coach in this league. So he should be a head coach when some of these jobs kind of open up, and what the offseason looks like with that. But I think he's ultimately earned his job at some point. That was his big long interview, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, he didn't. He came in obviously he has some talent there, but he came in a semi-tough situation where they were faltering, and hey, let him all the way to Game 7 of the second round against the best team in the league, and really had a chance to win it. Maybe a injury or two, or another day or two of rest could have really changed a lot. But unfortunately for them, it didn't. But we'll see what happens in Denver during the summer.
That's for sure. All right, so let's get into our Western Conference Finals preview. Right, so we obviously saw today OKC Thunder have advanced, and now what awaits them are those rested Minnesota Timberwolves. So what do you see with this series? Some advantages, some disadvantages on both teams. What do you see? How's this series going to shake out?
Man, this should be a fun one. These teams, they went 2-2 this season against each other. They have never met in the playoffs, so it'll be their first bout, which will be pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I think some of the advantages that Minnesota had in the first two rounds, playing, quote unquote, smaller ish teams, they really won't have as much of that against OKC. even though Golden State and Lakers to a certain degree, they played well defensively, but playing against a real scrappy, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, best team in the league against Minnesota, it's going to be different. But to me, it's not. I mean, I know you're going to see a 1 versus 6, but it's not like that to me. I think Minnesota has earned the right to be there. I think I'm going to say it. I think it's their time. I think Anthony Edwards is going to have a hell of a series. And
wait, what are we saying here, Eric?
I think your Minnesota Timberwolves will be in this year's NBA Finals. A-Rod, congrats.
You saying it with your chest right now? You're saying
I think so. I think so. Okay. I like OKC. Don't get me wrong, but I think Minnesota is on a mission, and I think they're gonna it's gonna be tough. Got to win one of those first two, no doubt, and I think they will. And I got them winning in 6 games.
Wow, in Minnesota, huh? Finishing it off. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Some of I think they could match the depth. I think they could match the size. I think they could match the athleticism. Definitely. I mean, we might see some games in the 70s for crying out loud, in the low 80s, but I don't know. Just a gut feeling.
So you think Anthony Edwards, he slayed LeBron and Luka in the first round?
That's right.
And then slayed. I mean, you can't really say Steph, but a half of Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy B.
Second round, and then he's going to slay through SGA. Wow.
I think what's going to happen is the game 2 or something. SGA is going to get his trophy in the pregame, and he's going to be. And my man Edwards is just going to. You know what he's going to do.
All right.
Well, gotta say
I'll say one thing. I think the biggest X factor for Minnesota and what's been kind of helping them throughout the whole playoffs is Julius Randle.
Yep.
I think out of mismatches, I think he's the biggest mismatch for OKC. Partly because I think he's going to body the hell out of Chet if he's even on him. If Chet even gets on him, Julius is going to play bully ball and probably get Chet in foul trouble pretty early on. So that's one thing, right? If they even are matching up that way, I'm sure they'll put a little bit a different spin on it. Like they'll probably put Chet on Rudy and Hartenstein maybe on Randall a little bit. But even that, like I think he's quicker than Hartenstein, right? He can probably beat him off the dribble. They know each other from New York too, so they played against each other in practice. So I think Julius Randle for sure will be their biggest X factor because we know what we're going to get out of Anthony Edwards, right? You're going to have some big games out of him. I'm not too worried about him having bad games. I think it would be more of just like, does Julius continue getting that 25 to 30 every night, right? If he does, they for sure are a problem.
Oh yeah. I think the one thing OKC, even though definitely first round they weren't battle tested, but they're definitely battle tested in round 2. I don't think really Minnesota has been as much. They lost game 1 and they pretty much handled business the rest of the way. And so they're going to play a fully healthy team. And so it's going to be tough. It just, I do think the likes of Julius Randle will continue to have a big game. We'll see. The matchups will be interesting in terms of who's going to guard who. We'll see how that plays out the first, couple games in the series. And so, man, it's going to be, 6-7 games, just how one would hope. And, obviously OKC does have the home court. So, hey, odds makers, I think they're like a plus 300, 330. They're going to, obviously pick the Thunder to win the series as they should.
Yeah.
But, Minnesota's been the underdog for a lot of these playoffs. So, it's gonna be a good one for sure.
Yeah, I think game 1 is going to be so crucial because OKC could possibly be tired, except for they at least blew out Denver tonight. So a little bit of rest. Tuesday. It wasn't as difficult, but again, they're playing Tuesday and they had to go a game 7, right? So they've had a lot to kind of play through in this series while Minnesota's been resting for quite some time now. So game 1. Well, is always big in a series regardless. But I think if OKC loses game 1, that will be very, very tough, right? Because Minnesota is, again, they're coming. They are just aggressive, and they think they can win the championship this year. And there's a lot of things that are pointing that they could possibly do it, right? But I think that smooth operator, SGA, is just going to handle his business in this series. And I think he's going to will them through the finals. I think their defense is just so good that I think they'll give Minnesota some trouble, because Minnesota kind of gets in those little, like you saw what Golden State did to them in the first game, like those little funks sometimes they'll get into, where they're just like missing a bunch of threes, and you can get in their head a little bit. I just think that OKC just sends so many people that create some mismatches, and especially on the defensive end. And I got them winning the series. I do think it's going to be a six game kind of series. I'm not sure if this goes 7, but I feel like OKC would possibly win in 6, right, in Minnesota, and kind of finish it off and get to the finals there.
Yeah, it would be the second straight year Minnesota loses in the Western Finals, and so last year they had home court. Probably were favorites against Dallas and ended up losing in 5, if I'm not mistaken. And so they all have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. Thunder on uncharted territory. They obviously wanted to. I mean, their goal is to win a championship, but they've moved past where they were at last year, where they finished last year. So, yeah, man. Like first couple of games, like it's going to be that rust, versus rest conversation on Tuesday. Maybe Thunder will come in. They're hot, right? They just had either it's like they had a tough 7-game series and they're tired, or they're going to carry that momentum to game 1 where Minnesota hasn't played in a bit. And so we might look to game 2 where it's a little bit tighter. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know how it is. If you're a team that's on the road, you want to try to get one of those first 2 and then see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be one hell of a series though, regardless. I love these matchups. I think they're just like on both sides. You got super young teams, super athletic teams, and some star power. I mean, West Coast is SGA versus Ant. Can't get any better than that, in my opinion. And then in the East, Jalen Brunson versus Tyrese, or however you want to call it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's the Western Conference preview. And now let's get to that Eastern Conference finals, which we got the New York Knicks having home court against the Indiana Pacers. 25 years in the making for both of them. So this is something that I think is going to be epic, especially when you're talking about playing in Madison Square Garden. The Garden is going to be lit. You're going to have all the celebrities there, courtside. But what do you see really going down in this series?
So we talked a little bit about it last show. So yeah, like you said, 25 years in the making. Conference finals again. We got Reggie Miller calling the game. TNT's last series of obviously having the NBA, which was pretty crazy. I know we'll still see Charles in them, but it's definitely going to be a little different next year. So
yeah, a little bittersweet.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I like Knicks, just in 7 in this series. I think it's going to go the distance for sure. I think that crowd in the last game is going to play the difference. I don't know how it's going to get there. I don't know if I anticipate Pacers maybe winning one of the first 2 and then it kind of flip-flopping as the series goes on. But as long as both teams are healthy, unlike last, playoffs with those 2 teams, I see Knicks just having a slight edge. And I think it's just all about Jalen Brunson. I think he will be the best player in the series. And I think he's going to need to be, because Indiana throws a lot of guys at you. And so where Indiana probably feels Halliburton's got to be the best player and do what he does with, distributing and obviously having some big games too offensively. But at the end of the day, I got to just think Jalen Brunson's just going to just have a little bit of a smidge better series and just ultimately, I got Knicks in 7. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think this series will be different than it was last year, right? The injuries that the Knicks piled on last year were just one of those things. I mean, you had Julius Randle already out, right, for the playoffs.
Yeah,
so he
that's
didn't
true.
really play.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Brunson was injured. OG obviously missed a bunch of games and tried to come back in Game 7. So I think you have a really healthy Knicks team, and they've added Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges, right? So from that last year's team, you added those two already, and you're healthy, and they're winning, and like they have this momentum kind of going on. I mean, I think the Pacers are going to make a hell of a series. Like I think they're going to. Oh yeah, they are a freaking monster on the offensive end. Like they can put up points in such quick spurts, and they go on runs like that. And we've seen twice where they're down by 7 with 45 seconds or a minute left, and they won the game, right? And that's that the chances of them winning was like 99.7%, like impossible. And that's never been done, I think, in two playoff games in the whole playoffs. So they definitely have that it factor. It's almost like I just don't know if they're there yet. Even though they got to the conference finals last year, I just don't know if they can get to the finals this year. And I don't know if that's me just wanting to kind of see the Knicks get into the finals, because I think that would be pretty epic and kind of and just seeing New York going buck wild on the crowd. But I think Game 1 will be a big tell of what the series will be like, right? If Indiana comes in and you see Tyrese is talking and he's yapping at New York and they're in their grill and they get the dub in the Game 1, New York is gonna be in a dog fight.
Yeah, I could see that happening though.
So
we'll see though.
I don't think the Knicks are taking them lightly. They shouldn't, because if they are, then that's a problem. But Indiana is not one team to play with. They, from their starting lineup and their depth that they have, they just run and gun. And Tyrese Halliburton's been playing like that for quite some time, and he's great at it. So.
Oh yeah, like Indiana last year, they were just glad to be there in the Eastern Conference Finals, and it really didn't have a chance against Boston. And I don't think this is like as much of a daunting task as like Boston last year. No disrespect to the Knicks, but they're beatable. Knicks are beatable. That's obviously right. And so, they probably really want to get that Game 1 and then just really set the tone for this series. More importantly. And if they do, then for sure I see it going the distance, obviously unless they win Game 2, but as well. But Knicks are going to have to find a solution to that pace that the Pacers, no pun intended, play, because it's going to be a dogfight, and I'm here for it, man. I'm lucky. I'm glad I don't have like a dog in any of these fights. I could just sit back and watch as a fan and enjoy the show, especially at Madison Square Garden.
That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of looking at, like, if you look at a whole for the whole 4 teams that are left, what stands out to you most about these teams that's different than usually? Different than usual, I guess, as a regular season, what they did differently, right? There's only one team that's in the top 10 defensively, and that's OKC Thunder, right? So I think there's a lot more offense. Obviously the Knicks and Indiana are definitely offensive rated teams. Minnesota. I think, did Minnesota finish in the top?
I think they were the only team that were in the top 10 in both offense and defense.
Yeah, I think they were. So Minnesota, the OKC, Minnesota, but on the other end, Indiana and New York are not, right? But like we've been talking about it, they have been playing great defense in the postseason, especially the Knicks. They've just stepped their game up on defense. And so it's like you always say, defense wins championships. What does that look like for Indiana, right? Because they're such a high-powered offensive team. Can they win a championship just being a high-powered offensive team?
That remains to be seen. I mean, it is interesting. And all the 4 teams are relatively young. There's some vets, obviously, on the teams, but kind of your old saying where the veteran team is going to find a way to, with experience, is going to win it, right? And so that's one thing that I noticed out of the final 4 teams. Definitely offense, and then obviously a mix of defense too. And so It's especially if Indiana makes it out, they're obviously going to be playing in the finals against a really good defensive team, and we'll be interested to see if they'd be able to play the same style against those teams that really value that half of the floor. So
Sure.
That's what I noticed, at least.
Yeah. So OKC was number 1, right, and Minnesota was number 6. And then for the Eastern Conference, it was Indiana at 13 and then New York at 16, right? So they were kind of middle of the pack defensively, but they've definitely stepped up both in the postseason. So
and Minnesota being top 10 in both shouldn't be a surprise they made it this far, right?
Yeah, they're pretty good. So it's going to be hell of a couple games on Tuesday and Wednesday. Looking forward to it. Finally getting to the nitty gritty, the Final Four.
Yep.
But before that, you know what time it is, Eric. What time?
Sorry to say, Denver. We had a hell of a season.
Time for the Schools Out edition for the Denver Nuggets. Where's my man Cam Miller? The one time Cam isn't commenting about his Nuggets.
Oh, man.
Losing in the Game 7. I was trying to get some snow that would fall down, but I couldn't get that. So we got a little bucket. We're ready to go to the beach. I think, like Joker said, he's going to be drinking a lot of beers over the next couple of days.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think he's going to stop. He's more than likely going to go to the racetrack in Serbia, right? He's going to go look at his horses and spend the whole offseason there.
Doing his thing.
The Denver Nuggets will be watching the finals from somewhere else.
Yep. Got a feeling they're all going to be in different places, which is all good. Fine and dandy. Get a break from each other. But, yes, for the second straight year, the Denver Nuggets have lost Game 7 of the second round of the playoffs. And so that's got to be pretty tough. Had a pretty good season in terms of just overall 50-32, as I mentioned earlier, 4th seed in the West. Had some bumps and bruises throughout the season. Obviously, Coach Michael Malone was fired. Brand new coach, signed Russell Westbrook. And at the end of the day, I know we hadn't even say his name.
I mean, we didn't mention Westbrook here.
No, we did not. We did not.
I don't know if we should, but there is one stat that kind of stuck out in my mind for this series.
Give it to us.
I will say, in this 7-game series, he averaged 9.9 points, shot 21% from 3, had about 2 assists per game, which is not a Westbrook type of series, and over 2 turnovers. So he averaged more turnovers than assists, and that is the bad side of Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, he had some good games against the Clippers, and I'm sure the Clipper faithful are like, man, of course, this had to happen to us, and look what happened to them against OKC. But, yes, he is a free agent next year, so we'll see. He's the only really notable free agent. We obviously already kind of talked about their offseason ahead, but didn't get the back-to-back, didn't get the 2 and 3 years, and so now Denver is back to the drawing board. School's officially out.
Drastic changes coming, in my opinion.
Yep, I can very much see that. But
props to Denver, though.
Yeah, they gave it their all, man. They battled 2 7-game series in a row.
I wanted to see advance, and I thought if they had a healthy Aaron Gordon, they would have had a chance in this Game 7. So unfortunately, we couldn't see that, and that's another team down because of a hamstring injury, which I hate to see, sucks to see, but that's what happens.
Yep.
So
it is what it is. There's only one team that wins a championship, right? So I mean, a lot of people are going to be going to school, and so once we get to this point, it's obviously some good teams that are going to be eliminated. So
we only got 3 more left. So more summer school.
Yes, sir.
But as always, everybody, we will be coming on after Game 1 on Tuesday of the Western Conference Finals. And then more than likely, because of the every other day schedule, we could possibly be going on every single night during the conference finals, so we can kind of give you the breakdown of the game and preview the next game tomorrow, the following game the next day. But Eric, you got any last words here?
No, that just ready for the conference finals. It's bittersweet. Only 4 teams left, so we know the end is near. But this is when you really start to see, the eye is on the prize for sure for these 4. And like we were talked about earlier, the first time in a long time, at least, that we can see all 4 winning it. And so can't wait for Tuesday.
Sounds good. As always, everybody, thank you for listening to the Hoops Rehab Show. And please rate and comment on our pod. Thank you, everybody. And the Hoops Rehab team is out.
Peace out, guys.
Peace out.